Okay, thank you very much and welcome to everybody to the, January 16, 2024 council meeting for the Township of Muskoka Lakes. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 1 o'clock district time, 1:05 local time. And I can confirm that I believe all members are present, some on Zoom, some here in the room. Welcome to everybody. Oh, with the exception of Councillor Bosenworth, who I understand may be joining us in progress. Thank you very much. I also would like to confirm that the CAO, the clerk, and other members of the senior management team also present. And I would like to acknowledge that we are on lands traditionally occupied by Indigenous peoples. Indigenous peoples have cared for this territory for the benefit of future generations, and their stewardship throughout the ages is recognized. I would also give the public notice that today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka Lakes website and YouTube channel. And by participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, your voice, and your comments being recorded and being posted online as well. We sought, as we always do, we sought public input on the agenda at the address TML public comment at muskokalakes.ca, and to my knowledge, no correspondence was received. Correct? I would also like to acknowledge that there was a supplementary agenda published, I believe, yesterday. It adds several matters, and pursuant to section 7.2.1 of Council Procedural Bylaw 2019-079, the supplementary agenda was issued to add the following. Number A, 10G, a report from the Manager of Human Resources, report HR-2024-001, procurement of an external recruiter. Next, 10A, public comments from Peter Ewald, CTEC, Lakeland Solutions, Bracebridge Generation Limited. Report PW-2024-006, electric vehicle charging stations. And finally, I believe, final one is under section 11A.14, bylaw 2024-019, to regulate the flow of traffic on Bala Falls Bridge Road and to regulate the use of Bala Falls Bridge Road by motorized snowmobiles. Report number PW-2024-004, snowmobile trail, Bala Falls Road and Bridge. I would like to ask all members of council if they have any pecuniary interests that require disclosure. Councillor Burry, your hand is up.
I am conflicted on item 10A, the electric vehicle charging stations. I have a pecuniary interest in one of the suppliers to Lakelands.
Perfect. Seeing no other, I will add my own. I have a conflict on item 11A.13 regarding bylaw 2024-20, and it specifically relates to the acquisition of property, and I own an adjacent piece of property to that particular piece of real estate. Just let me check one quick thing. And I also have I will be asking to pull from the consent agenda some matters that have come up in the last couple of weeks. I've got them here. The December 2nd, 2023 council minutes, which contain matters relating to the same piece of property acquisition, and the January 10th, 2024 special council minutes, which I also recused myself from on the exact same matter. They're going to be pulled and I will recuse, and we will ask Deputy Mayor Mazan to take the chair while I'm out of the room. Last but not least, first item on the list, I believe. Have I covered the bases? I think I've covered it. I would really happy to introduce two people, one of whom is going to speak. The other one I suspect is going to speak as well when the questions start coming up. First of all, Chair Jeff Lehman of the District Municipality of Muskoka. Welcome, Jeff. Glad to see you here. I also would like to point out Julie Stevens, who is the CAO for the district, is here as well. Welcome to you both. Happy New Year. and the floor is yours.
Happy New Year, and thank you very much. Can you hear me okay online? Answer that at all? No?
How's that? Oh, that sounds better. Now you can hear me online. Excellent. Good. Glad I asked. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, member of council, for having me here to give you a bit of an update on the district's strategic plan and progress. And this will be no surprise to the members of district council here. You have a full afternoon, so I just plan to take about the next 2 hours to cut. I'm just hoping I won't do that to you. Julie is with me today, the CAO, and as always, if there are any difficult questions, she'll answer them. But if we can call up the slide presentation. It's really a presentation in two parts today. I want to quickly move through our strategic plan and then show you a little bit of the progress towards what I believe to be shared priorities in Muskoka in 2023. Thank you so much. And maybe can I just say next slide, and that'll be easier for you. Does that work? Okay. All right. Next slide. This is the lovely group of people I have the honor of working with. 23 members of district council from across the 6 area municipalities. Many of us are new, and it's my pleasure as somebody who's been in the municipal sector for a little while, but new in this role, to have spent much of my time this year learning from many other experienced members and to get to know the district council members here from Muskoka Lakes. One of the things we did decide early on is that the district needed to take a quick new look at our strategic priorities. And I said quick because we did try and move through this in about 3 months' time. The district strategic plan had a lot of priorities and was a little bit aged. And we did take a look at our vision and mission and came up with a new vision and mission statement. And, you know, when I talk about the district of Muskoka and other settings, you know, the district was formed in 1970, as Graydon Smith often says, to do the big things that are held in common, our goals and projects that are common across the district of Muskoka, 4,800 square kilometers in 6 area municipalities. But the role has evolved so much, and especially in the area of social services, housing, and healthcare, which were not service responsibilities when the district was created. And so we've had to evolve along with it. And I believe our new vision and mission statement reflect that. And hopefully you'll see that in the next few slides as I move through our plan. So next slide. Okay, this is the district strategic plan in one slide. We have 4 areas of focus: environment, community, services, and team. The top two and the 5 priorities beside them are outward facing. They're more community priorities across the district. The 2 areas on the bottom with the 5 priorities on the right are a little bit more internal. They're about how we build and change our organization as the district of Muskoka. It won't be a surprise to anyone in this room that protecting our environment and responding to climate change came out at the top of the list, many people's list for priorities for the district of Muskoka. And we certainly have heard the housing challenges across Muskoka, and our housing task force is ably led by your mayor, Mayor Kelly, and I will have a little bit more to say about housing, that's for sure, as we move through the presentation. But you know, the district's role in the economy is very much on the workforce side. We try and reduce barriers to employment through things like childcare, through transportation, but we know that the future prosperity of our district of Muskoka depends on having the labor force to support both the industries that are substantial here in tourism, construction, and so forth, but also diversifying into other areas of employment. Community health and well-being. This is a role that has kind of been downloaded and grown upon us as municipalities over the last 20 years. But there are certainly challenges even coming out of COVID that change the way we as municipalities do things. Internally, and we were just chatting about this, service alignment, taking a look at how we can deliver our services between area municipalities and the district the most efficiently, and modernizing our service delivery models. Service excellence, of course, a goal of every municipality, and future thinking. This is so important. We're on a 4-year cycle as municipal councils, but many of the issues we face are generational. and can take decades to make an impact. And if I may, as still the new guy after a year, I was so pleased to find as I moved into this role that the amount of work that has been done by district councils past to position the municipality in such a way that it could start to invest to address these challenges it allows us the luxury in a way of future thinking and not struggling every day with the latest challenge. Not that there aren't those from time to time. Investing in our people, of course, has never been more important as municipalities in a tight labor market and one where we have very specialized jobs in municipal roles. And better together, working beyond the district walls to try and bring people together in our community. So next slide, I want to talk a little bit about that. Next slide, thanks. So this comes from our friends at Strategy Corp, and I know you are familiar with them. This is a point that they often make, and I think is so important right now. Municipality shapes our community, not just with our spending or when we set rules, but how we bring the community together and how we advocate to other levels of government for what needs to change in our communities. And that makes our strategic planning that much more important, because it is what we go out to our community with and say, we need you to help us try and solve this problem and make these changes to make life better for people across the district and for future generations. Climate change and housing are two such examples where we will never meet that challenge alone at any one level of government. It will be only by bringing together industry, by bringing together charities, not-for-profits, and municipalities to try and address those challenges. And so we turned our mind to this as we built our new strategic plan. Next slide. So when we looked at our community, we said on the environment and on our community priorities, how can we both, through district choices in how we spend money and how we deliver services, but also how can we bring the community together? And the Housing Task Force is probably the most obvious example of how we intend to address the challenges of creating more affordable housing in Muskoka together. Next slide. Internally, as I mentioned at the outset, looking at the placemat, taking a look at our services and our service delivery model is an important piece that this council has given direction to do. Rather than looking at all of our services together, a broad review at once, we have chosen to focus on specific services where we know there are the opportunity and there is the interest in looking at the service model. So roads rationalization is one. Certainly land use planning, and quite a bit of work has been done in 2023 to modernize the way the district delivers land use planning and supports our other goals, such as creating more affordable housing. Next slide, please. Okay, this is where usually in this presentation I say if you read one document from district this year, I guess I'm speaking to the non-district councillors, please read this one. It is our action plans, and this is what falls from our strategic plan. These are the specific things that we are committing to do as district and how we will measure our success year by year. And the point I wanted to make in this is a little bit of a reader's guide too. We tried to make this outcome focused. We wanted to talk about the impact that we have with our choices and the actions and specific steps we'll take to reach them. And this piece on the bottom right about how we will measure our progress, the specific metrics we are choosing. Number one, having metrics is an important thing. But number two, that they are outcome-based and not just volume-based. Maybe you could move to the next slide for me. Thanks. This is a point I think is really important for us as municipalities. In any strategic planning, it's tempting to set metrics that either are familiar or seem achievable. It's always tougher to set metrics that are a stretch to achieve. But the important distinction here is we're often very good at counting how much we do something, either counting the money we spend or counting the number of lane kilometers or those sorts of things. We're less good often as a sector at measuring the impact of what we do. And so we tried to, with this district strategic plan, shift to metrics that measure the impact. Are we making a difference to our residents when we make our decisions at the district? And hopefully as we go through the cycle year by year of reporting back on progress, you will start to see that we're reporting on the impact the district is making in our communities, and less so whether the number of times we did something is up. Did it have an impact when we did it? That's the important question. Okay, next slide. Okay, now I wanted to just touch on for a few more minutes the progress that we did make together in 2023. You know, we have sort of picked and chosen different items that we think are relevant in terms of major initiatives. But there are certainly some things that came up in the last couple of months that I want to talk about at the end, just to conclude the presentation. Work we do together, of course, GIS and mapping is a major effort that we've undertaken together, and climate adaptation underlies that work. Being prepared for flooding, creating better information about flooding. We're now up to about 80% LiDAR coverage across the district. And a lot of what hasn't been surveyed is Crown land. All of this is public. It's all on the GeoHub on the district's website. And it helped us together with you. We worked together with 5 of our 6 area municipalities to develop climate change adaptation plans. And the regional, the RECAP project, which is the Regional Climate Adaptation Plan, is a joint effort of the area municipalities and the district to try and prepare for what we're already seeing. Winter didn't show up until about a week ago. I know in front of my place, the water was open later this year than I can ever remember it, going back about 30 years. Weather is not climate. And you're I know we're still open in the middle of the day too. Weather is not climate, but when you map the trend over time, the number of ice-free days, for example, it's a very clear trend. So we know the impacts are here. They're not coming, they're here. Next slide, please. Housing Task Force. Well, there's the chair, district chair, and the Housing Task Force chair at the back, because we're the tall guys. The Housing Task Force was reconstituted. We call it 2.0 because intentionally it has a different mandate than the district's first task force, which did excellent foundational work in policy and in research in many areas to set the stage for what we hope to see. And I can sort of update and say to you now, will be a much more substantial move in 2024, I think, on housing from the district. At the end of the year, as part of our budget discussions, District Council directed staff to come back with a plan for $20 to $30 million of investment in housing across the district. What exactly that will look like, we are turning to the Housing Task Force to help advise council what that should look like. But basically, I think I heard my council say, you know, the district has some capacity to make a capital investment of that nature. It's likely going to need to be leveraged, but we can do that now, and it's needed now. And that we're in a position to do that is because of Julie Stevens and District Council's past fiscal discipline over many years. But the number of people who need this now is substantial and growing, and the time for the investment is now. And I think, without precluding, your mayor and I are going to have a conversation about this tomorrow, but I think it's fair to say District Council has an interest in, when you make a generational investment like that, not just increasing numbers in existing programs, but creating real capacity for more housing to be built in Muskoka longer term, and casting our thoughts more broadly to how we can build a more sustainable housing situation in the district of Muskoka that isn't just limited to our traditional avenues. We've learned a lot already. Some district programs have worked well, others didn't have much take up. But this year we did make a record investment into MAHIP, the Muskoka Affordable Housing Incentive Program, and that level of investment was repeated for 2024 as we work on the plan for the larger housing investment. Next slide, please. On economic development, as I mentioned, you know, the district's role has been on the labor side. We try and reduce barriers to employment and help people find employment in Muskoka. And in the very tight labor market that we found over the last couple of years, this has included a job board, which we did in partnership with your local economic development. my effort to start a local immigration partnership. I can update you to say that the district will be submitting for federal funding. That submission is due by the end of the month. So there are some district staff who are working very hard the next 2 weeks. But we've had a tremendous response to this. And again, this is in that convening role where we reached out. We've received now almost 30 different letters of support. And that's come from the YMCA. It's come from churches and faith groups. It's come from employers. It's come from area municipalities. So we trust we're putting our best foot forward on behalf of Muskoka so that there are more settlement services here to help new Canadians adapt to life in Muskoka and succeed here. Because we know it's going to be important for the labor market, and it's happening already, of course. Employers have been doing this for years, bringing folks in some cases, actively recruiting overseas, but it is, of course, happening organically with the increased numbers of new Canadians arriving in our country. Childcare as well, and this is a piece that we're very, very passionate about. Of course, we had an announcement here in the latter, just before Christmas, both in schools and in-home daycare. We're attempting to deliver the federal $10 a day daycare program. Just to give you a sense, though, even if we succeed, and I believe, well, I shouldn't say that, when we succeed in delivering 373 new childcare spaces, that's the target, that will only increase the access rate from 20% in Muskoka to 36% in terms of access to subsidized childcare. So there's a lot more that will need to happen in the coming years if we want to have enough childcare available just to Muskoka families. But it's a significant bit of progress. Next slide, please. Okay, my last few here. What are politicians if they don't get to go to groundbreakings? This was the groundbreaking for the Fairburn home in Huntsville earlier this year. And what I wanted to tell you about Fairburn, we are certainly having our challenges with the cost of that project. No surprise in a way in an inflationary climate the last couple of years. But good work has been done already and remains to be done, I believe, to make sure we're getting very good value out of the very large project, 160 beds that will be created for Muskoka seniors. The other thing I did want to say, though, I think is that there was a choice made to try and create the home on a social and not institutional model. And the design, which comes at a premium, is intended to be a better environment for the people who live there than traditional long-term care homes. It is very much on a small home model, it's called, designed to replicate a more home-like environment than an institutional environment. And while that comes at a cost, I believe it will be something that everybody in Muskoka who sees it will be able to be very proud of. And if you have a family member there, they will have a significantly improved quality of life compared to existing long-term care options. Next slide, please. Okay, and these are my last few. One thing I am particularly proud about in terms of our progress as District Council in 2023 was the approval of a 10-year master plan for paramedics and investment in that plan. Each year, there will be an investment in the paramedic service to improve our response time. This year, one of those, not just to improve our response time, but to expand paramedicine, to ensure that we are providing full services in all parts of the district or as close to it as we can get. On the left is the existing coverage map in terms of achieving our response time targets. On the right is the what will result after the 10-year investment. You can particularly see in West Muskoka and Lake of Bays the impact of that investment, but also, and of course, here in Muskoka Lakes, you see some of that in the northwest part of the municipality and the southwest part of the municipality. Also, today, the investment has been made into, for example, 24/7 coverage in Gravenhurst that didn't exist previously. And that means there are people coming here running calls as paramedics this year that weren't running those calls last year, couldn't run those calls last year. Next slide, please. I mentioned some of the service modernization work that's been done. We have restarted the road rationalization study. The review of capacity allocation, this is who gets water and wastewater services for development. To be frank, there have been developments that received their capacity allocation from the district and then sat on it for 15 years without building anything. And that all counts towards what we consider the capacity of those plants to be. So we had some artificially high capacity numbers where the plant was running at half capacity, but you know, all of the capacity was allocated and we couldn't service any new development in any of our, in that area. By overhauling that and sunsetting some of those allocations, which was a difficult conversation, we are now, I think, creating the opportunity for faster approvals and to support more development, particularly in the towns where it is desired. And it will help us get housing online sooner. Next slide. Modernizing the planning process, Muskoka Plan Hub, online submissions, single point of submission for documentation, digitizing our procedures. These are all very important pieces of trying to make the service delivery better. A long-term care back office integration is an incredibly difficult endeavor. Of course, we brought a private home into the district, the Fairburn home, but that is going on in the background as well and has made a lot of progress in 2023. Last couple of slides. Next slide. Okay, communication. Okay, I'm here today in no small part because I heard and was asked by District Council to improve the opportunities to communicate with our area municipalities, and that's one of the reasons why I'm standing here in a public council meeting to present this to you. But more broadly, the district has a goal of expanding both the reach of our communication and the engagement from members of the public. These are some of the numbers around our social media engagement, which has been very good. We also got a great take up on a number of the surveys, and I would particularly mention the Second Home Survey, which saw a very, very high response rate this year. And thank you to those of you who helped to play a part in making sure that happened. That information shapes the way we deliver services at the district, and it makes sure that second home owners are getting an opportunity to tell us about the services they receive and what they would like to see from district. Next slide. And this is the last. So our work on the Muskoka Area Indigenous Leadership Table, I can tell you I enjoy so much of my work here for the district, but Mailty meetings are truly special. With the leadership of the Rama First Nation, Moose Deer Point, and Wata, as well as the area municipalities, we've been able to do some really interesting things, including renaming Muskoka Road 38 to Ganyangahaga Yohadache in the Mohawk language, which means Mohawk People Road. And there's more work to come in 2024. But those meetings, particularly on our thinking about land stewardship and our history in Muskoka, have been very, very interesting, helpful, and have grown, I believe, the work that we do together on reconciliation. Next slide. Yeah, we do like to finish these presentations with our corporate values of RISE, respect, innovation, service, and equity. Always, I think we in the municipal sector try and do what's often unheralded work. So much of what municipalities do is quiet work that makes life great in our communities. But I think, you know, one of the things that we really do wish to do at district is to take our opportunity as the regional municipality to bring together communities in a way that helps us address the bigger challenges in Muskoka. And I think on housing, you're going to see that in 2024 from us, and watch for more on climate as well, because I think the community action plan, it's not just about adapting, it is about doing our part to try and help mitigate. But the community plans for climate are coming to the district council in the next few cycles. And so we're going to be seeing a lot of housing and climate over the next 6 months. Okay, I've taken 20 minutes of your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions I can, but thank you again for the opportunity, Mayor Kelly.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the time you've taken with us. I'm going to ask if anyone has any questions, raise their hand. I'm going to I'll start off with one, just so we have one. Oh, sorry, is Councillor Zabit's hand up? Okay. Well, hi back to you.
Oh, yeah.
You recently celebrated your first anniversary in the chair, I think last month. You showed the good judgment to celebrate it in the township of Muskoka Lakes.
That's right.
In Torrance at Clear Lake
Yeah, it was an
Brewery.
exciting
And it was a
night.
great evening.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, after 1 year, highlights, lowlights, or no, let's not go there. You've walked through a lot of that.
Happy to give you.
Let's talk about, well, what was the most pleasant surprise coming in for a year, and where were you surprised the other way?
Yeah, no, fair. And thanks for mentioning that night, that evening. It was a good event with the Muskoka Chamber. It shouldn't be a surprise, but I was pleasantly surprised to see how many community. I tried to do a lot of stakeholder meetings in my first 6 months, and stakeholders, it's our word, community organizations and people in positions of leadership in the community in one way or another, the business community, public and private sector. The number of organizations who are committed and people who are committed to Muskoka's future is remarkable, and the number of people who very clearly, when you talk to them, have such a passion for Muskoka. I think it is one of the things that makes us special. I think people care about not just the natural environment here, but the success of the communities and the success of their families, the success of their businesses. I will say that the downside of that is, I found, for example, like there are maybe 40 different organizations in one way or another involved in economic development, and they all have 1 or 2 staff. And the challenge that comes with that always is you can only go this far, this deep. And boy, can you imagine if we took that 40 organizations, 1 or 2 people deep, and did this, and had 40 or 80 people working on, say, just a project or one thing, how much depth we'd have. And, I think, Mayor Kelly, thanks for that very open question, because we have such a resource in Muskoka in our residents, seasonal and full-time. We have people with incredible depth of experience, and many people who've chosen to move here late in their careers or later in their life, and can bring that depth of experience. And so that, I think, is an enormous opportunity for us to harness. But I would say, if we can't show our kids a future here economically or socially, then what are we doing? And so I do think as we try and engage that broader community, and as I did all those meetings, I really did get a sense of the energy and passion that exists here, if maybe spread very thin sometimes.
Fair comment. That's good. Thank you. Councilor Nishikawa.
Hello, Chair. I get to
Councilor.
ask the difficult stuff.
Sure.
Very rarely do we have a meeting, and you will see it either at district or you will see it at our own table, that we don't bring up the fact of the 40% that the Township of Muskoka Lakes contributes to the district.
Mm-hmm.
And that I'm actually not even clear when we get to revisit. We talk about what happened in the 70s. I personally think we should be making changes to what happened in the 70s, but I just seen doors close rather than actually moving forward for this particular municipality. And I have to remember that there's so many very, very basic things that get to happen in other locations throughout the district of Muskoka that don't get to happen in our township, because in fact, we don't have the money because of this 40%. It really hangs heavily over our heads. And at least for me, for 20 years, it's been a big topic about our restrictions, of how we get to put a new playground in. Something as basic as that. Actually, we are very, very limited of how much cash flow. And in fact, I think this municipality has been very responsible in not going into debt in the levels that other municipalities have chosen to do. And we should continue to be that respectful of people's money. But the fact is, this whole 40% is weighing heavily over our head. When could we expect to revisit this conversation with a newer council?
So are you talking about the 38% of the overall assessed value in Muskoka that is the Township of Muskoka Lakes? Okay, it comes from MPAC. We all have to use the same number. And the reassessment, which hasn't occurred now in 7 years, will change that. We don't know what way it'll go, but I guess we'll find out. And at the moment, there is no plan for that reassessment. So we're all stuck with it for the moment. But I think your question really comes about is about the value that you see Muskoka Lakes getting for the percentage of the overall district budget that is paid by residents of Muskoka Lakes. Yes. Oh, okay. Try again then. Yeah.
No, it's not. So it's more about fairness, equality, like being equal as any other municipality. For instance, you know, we've had this conversation about hospitals and the whole idea that the residents here have to pay more than a neighboring, you know, like that whole thing is, but it's not about what we're getting. We know what we're getting, but we had an opportunity to have a conversation. The past council had the conversation about moving forward and that didn't get changed at that time. But that shouldn't mean that we never revisit it. And that's where I'm trying to see when does as I say, we've got a lot more newer counselors on now, and when do they get to be part of that conversation?
Just for my edification, are you talking about voting rights at council?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about? Are you
Not
talking
clear.
about, because you're talking just strictly the collection?
It was both of those conversations were wrapped up together when we revisited this back. Sorry, Guy would maybe.
Well, maybe I can help with framing where some of this comes from. So in our township, we get to keep about 20 cents of every dollar that's on our total levy, which is, you know, when our taxpayers see it, it's a number about $61 million on the $10 billion. And we send about 50% to the district. As a comparator, Bracebridge keeps 49% of their levy and sends 30%. Georgian Bay is as close as we get. They're 26% they get to keep, and they send 48%.
Right.
So these kinds of numbers, you know, Gravenhurst gets to keep 49% and sends 31%. And yet the township of Muskoka Lakes contribution to the district is more than Gravenhurst, Bracebridge, and the township of Georgian Bay combined. If you combined Huntsville, Bracebridge, and Gravenhurst, we're a mere $2.5 million behind what they have. And I think where Councillor Nishikawa is going is we could have chosen to build a nice, small, long-term continuing care space, not at Fairvern in Huntsville, but in the township of Muskoka Lakes. So at what point do we as a contributor at the lower tier begin to be treated with more equity? And we use equity and respect in our strategic plan. And my view is that the township has neither been respected nor treated with equity ever.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
we
I guess
inherited that.
We'll go to the
Couple
answer.
of-
Let's
yeah.
go to the answer.
Thanks for that, Raquel. Couple of things. So this year, other than the Fairburn project, there's one new building being built in the district of Muskoka by the district with district tax dollars. That's here in Muskoka Lakes. So this year, the only municipality that's getting an investment into paramedic facilities is Muskoka Lakes. Some years it's other municipalities, other years it's Muskoka Lakes. If the question is overall, is the level of district spending in Muskoka Lakes 38%? I'm sure it is. I'm sure it isn't. More of the spending, the higher cost items, such as a long-term care facility, are in one of the towns. It would be interesting to do that math, I suppose. But I guess a couple of things, and back to Councillor Nishikawa's remarks. So if you own $1 million cottage, you will pay $14.30 a year for the local share towards the two hospitals. That's the same if you're in Lake of Bays, or if you're in Georgian Bay, or if you're in Bracebridge, or if you're in Gravenhurst, or if you're in Muskoka Lakes. So there's no disadvantage between residents of different municipalities. The fact is you have more $1 million cottages in Muskoka Lakes than in other communities. And so the assessment base in the township is much, much, much larger, right, than, for example, in Lake of Bays. across the district of Muskoka, across our full area, there are services that are delivered by geography. Paramedics is a good example. It's based on calls to people for when they need them, and we spread out that service geographically. You can't do that on a monetary basis. You can't put 38% of the district spending on paramedics in the township of Muskoka Lakes, because you would end up with grossly unfair and inadequate service levels in other areas of the district, right? I mean, that is the reality. We have an income-based, or at least a asset value-based tax that we all of us municipalities rely on for our primary source. But we have service delivery that is fundamentally to people. Some of it's to property, but it's to numbers of properties, whether it's a $5 million cottage or a $200,000 home. It has 3 bedrooms and 3 toilets, and it's probably generating the same amount of water and sewage. And so there are inevitably those inequities if you view them on a dollar basis. That's a reality of the municipal system.
I guess part of our problem as a township, and I guess I can only speak for myself, is that, you know, we get to keep 20 cents on the dollar. We don't have enough money to do the kinds of things that are like kind of bare minimum in our township, because such a huge proportion is going to the district. You know, we raised our taxes significantly this year so we could put an extra $1.5 million into reserves. And there's been lots of squawking about that, with mostly people not understanding that, you know, the larger increase, the 15% increase, is actually only on 20% of it. And when you throw in the district and the province, you know, you're down to 5.5%, which looks to be like half of what the city of Toronto is going to be.
Correct.
But I think our issue is that, you know, our resident base have big tax bills because they do have large assessments, and that's what happens when you got almost $11 billion worth of assessments. But the fact is that, you know, they say, what are you doing with all the money? And it's like, we only keep 20 cents on the dollar. And that's the piece that I guess most people don't understand, and makes it difficult for our staff to be able to provide the kinds of services that are, you know, in some ways expected, because it's gone to the district, and somehow we're going to have to figure out how does it become a more equitable, because we are in a life of where we need to bring equity to many things. And I recognize we don't need that kind of paramedic help, but, you know, we probably do need that help in some other areas that the district could be doing more for us. And you know, it's really difficult when it's the towns versus the townships on a vote. And yet the townships are subsidizing. I mean, if we want to go right at it,
you got a question here?
Yeah, why are the townships subsidizing the district roads in the town of Bracebridge?
So a couple of things. First of all, I've been dead set as district chair that I'm not going to have a 12-10 vote, town versus township. Guess what? We haven't, right, in a year. And thank you as a district councillor, Councillor Burry, Councillor Nushikawa, Councillor Edwards, and Kelly, for participating in many cases in the effort to find solutions that better balance the needs of the towns and the townships. So we didn't have that. And there were a couple of votes I was concerned about that. The hospital is certainly one of them. But the Township of Georgian Bay made an effort to change the district's approach to funding hospitals to represent the needs of West Muskoka. And that ultimately led to a broader consensus on council. I think the inequity in the level of spending is unlikely to ever change for the same reason I just explained. If there are district services where the quality of the service is poorer in the townships, we wish to improve that. There are some geographic realities around that. It takes longer to run a ambulance around the township of Georgian Bay than it does to run it around the town of Gravenhurst, but only in the urban area. Response times are also slow in the rural parts of all 3 towns. So, you know, I think as district councillors, yourself, Councillor Nishikawa, around the table, one of the things that we can do as we move forward with these conversations is to say, you know, for the 80 cents, are we meeting the needs of Muskoka Lakes residents? Are we delivering value for that tax dollar? And where I would start in answering your question, I guess, Councillor Burry, after today, part of the reason for the communications push that you've heard about all year around the table is we think there's very low level of engagement so far by members of the public in terms of what am I actually getting for my tax dollars. And so what we're going to start with showing what we're doing where and how that compares, by the way, to other municipalities in terms of their level of taxation. But congratulations on your budget. That couldn't have been easy. You're making a substantial investment to correct some issues, I think, and that took political guts. So congratulations.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Councillor Mazan to have a question, please.
I think I do have questions. As not sitting at the district, it may be a bit more specific to the presentation. I was interested in two parts. First of all, it somewhat dovetails, I think, into this discussion on service level. I'm now looking, I think, at the action plan areas under our services action area 6.1. Streamline service delivery to maximize value and outcomes. And underneath that, the first point is to work with our municipalities to examine service areas where both levels of government have shared responsibilities or mutual interest, and identify 3 service areas or delivery method models to review during this term of council. Question is, how are you planning to isolate what those 3 are?
Yeah.
I think I heard you talk, and you did note the road optimization study. But how is that priority going to happen?
Yeah. So the road rationalization study was resurrected, if you will, after being parked, pardon the pun, for about 4 or 5 years, I guess. Really? Yeah. The consulting team, the engineers, are starting with, rightly, the principles. And the principles are what's a district road, what's a local road, and why. And should any of those principles, which do date from the 1970s originally, have any of those things changed? So, for example, district roads used to connect to a place of employment. That was one of the criteria. Would connect a population center to a place of employment. Well, in 1970, that included some mines, sawmills, resorts. All 3 of those categories have district roads that are now leading to defunct mines, logging operations, and resorts. And so, you know, what is the long-term future of that, and should that continue to be a criteria? We're also seeing new traffic patterns in the district that certainly didn't exist 50 years ago, and in some cases didn't exist 5 years ago because of the population growth that we experienced during COVID. So it's timely, I think, to look at it from a point of view. So how are we doing it? I think we're looking at first principles. What is the right way to do it? Then the data to say where are we seeing the pressures, and then we look at what's going to be the cost for local municipalities and the district of this road being transferred. It's not the roads, it's the structures that drive the cost. So you can have a 30-kilometer road. If it doesn't go over a bridge, it's a relatively low-cost asset to maintain. You can have a 2-kilometer road that is mostly on structures, and the cost is astronomical because of the cost to maintain those structures. And so that will be a real factor. You know, we may, as the study progresses, identify that there are roads that might not meet the criteria to be a district road, but if we were to download them to you, it would be a punitive cost to try and maintain that asset over time, even with the reserves that the district has built. And we don't have, as Councillor Burry and Nishikawa never know, we don't have a big chunk of money that's been put away that funds that full asset plan, but we are paying $30 million a year towards 118 and all the other district roads that we maintain. So anyway, the process there will be to look at it in that order. On the planning side, the work was already underway, really, to look at modernizing the delivery model. Online service through Plan Hub is a major step forward. Rationalizing the capacity allocations is a major step forward. I think Director Martin, Lisa Martin, who's our Director of Planning, one of the pieces that has been hugely challenging is the yardsticks from the province have moved every 3 to 6 months with new housing legislation, but that now seems to be calming down a little bit. And what that's going to allow her to do in 2024 I think is, along with Mayor Kelly and myself, look at how we achieve our joint goals more quickly through a simplified planning process, but not lose focus on careful stewardship, for example, of the shoreline. So we pushed back to the province when they wanted to give site plan approval of up to 10 units without municipal site plan process. They wanted to exempt that from the municipal site plan process. That would be very problematic in Muskoka Lakes on the shorelines. And so the province has changed direction on that. That's an example of the joint advocacy working. But on the service rationalization, a lot of that can now play out within the new legislation. And then the third area, I'm not sure, Julie, is it fair to say it hasn't been chosen yet? Yeah. We wanted to focus on those first two. I think there's ongoing efforts to modernize our solid waste. Those come with bumps inevitably, because the primary goal is not just to cut the cost, to have a more value driven service model. It's that actually the primary goal is to divert more waste, to throw less garbage into the ground. And Muskoka's diversion is frankly extremely low, not Muskoka Lakes, but the districts, compared to even immediately to our north and to our south are doing better than we are. And that shouldn't be the case. We should be able to do it at least as well as our neighbors. And so we're trying to roll out the green bin programs, manage the bin sites and so forth. So there's I guess my point is there's modernization going on there. I don't know that that's necessarily an issue of who does what, so much as how the district does our work.
Can
Go ahead.
That's my first question. Thank you. The other question I have is under the environment piece. I know that the integrated watershed management, which is something that we've been a part of and had quite a few presentations on, is noted under the action areas, just working and collaborating with partnerships. And I'm just wondering if you could expand on if this is an area that will continue to be expanded on in the absence of a conservation authority. This has been just this ongoing challenge I personally have had, is it doesn't seem like there's a strong governance structure around this. And it's a project that comes by and asks for ad hoc funding periodically. And it's being run by incredibly talented volunteer structures.
Correct.
So I'm just interested to know if that is something that's being contemplated.
Yeah. Thank you. We're at a bit of I was about to say a watershed moment for IWM. It is a inflection point, because phase one is done by and large. We need the funding for phase two from the province if we're going to proceed with the full gamut of what was planned. If that doesn't happen, then we're going to have a conversation, I think, around what the district can feasibly fund. There's a conference, as I'm sure you know, in the planning coming up, being led by the council. I think and thank you for recognizing, everywhere else in the province, and everywhere else in central and southern Ontario have got a conservation authority. The districts had to fill that gap in many cases in the environmental science and in the environmental programming and planning. And we do some of those things, but not all of them. And you're right, our partners in the community are doing incredible work to try and advance IWM. I think, to cut to the chase, we're going to be making an advocacy push to the province over the next sort of 3 months to try and get that funded. If the next phase is not funded, we can't get the ministry to come on board with the next phase, then we're going to have a conversation around what can we do on what budget locally. None of that will change that there's stuff being done right now by volunteers that in other places would already have been funded, either as core conservation area activity or conservation authority activity, or through other environmental programs. So it's a big advocacy piece. And we could use your help in that. I think some of us are at Roma next week and we'll see what we can do there.
Thank you.
Okay, have we any other, Councillor Roberts, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to Mr. Chair Lehman. There, as you recall, that when we went through our official plan, and when when the district is dealing with some of the lake associations, a lot of talk was put around causation studies.
Mhm.
And there was a commitment that there was a commitment made that the new rules pertaining to how we'll move forward with water quality assessment. Because a lot of the reports, the causation reports that have come out said that the problem with the water changes that have been identified by many of the community scientists, they're really not related to development. So when will that report be published by the district?
Mm.
The new rules. Thank you.
I just looked at my CAO and she laughed because she's not sure.
That's okay. Get back to me.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get back to you, Councillor Roberts, but thanks for the question and the interest for sure.
Thank you. Any more? Councillor Edwards.
Yes, thank you very much. Excellent presentation, by the way, as
Thanks,
usual.
Councillor Edwards.
I guess when you're going to Roma, will you be talking about healthcare? Will you be talking about Andy's house?
Thank you for asking. Yes, hospice, we will be talking about mental health supports, community well-being, but also the asks from hospice. Is that what you're asking about?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, we were granted deputation meetings, 2 of the ones that we were seeking. We did not seek a deputation on that one, but we have already written to the province on both of those matters, and I do intend to do what we can while we're down there to push for more funding.
As you say, from what I can gather from the province, they were saying that healthcare was supposed to follow the patient.
Yeah.
Well, they're not following the 33,000 people that come up here in the summer. We have a health hub that could be open 7 days a week.
Yep.
Especially in the summer, and that's not happening. That's one thing should be mentioned. And you know, on taxes, of course, we're paying 38.6, I believe it was. But anyway,
Right.
If the district were wise, they would put it on their website, what you're paying per 100,000, per 500, a million, million and a half on there, what the district is paying, and then each municipality plus the education tax.
Yes.
And you will see per 100,000, we went up $18 and some odd cents. Well, Bracebridge went up $34 per 100,000. And it was only 2.99% in Gravenhurst, but it went up $16 and some odd cents. If people could see what they're paying dollar wise, not percentage wise, because we're getting flack, oh, it's 15%. But we didn't raise it that much compared to some of the other municipalities, and that should be shown somewhere. The district on their website should show that. That would help. Thank you.
And thank you very much for that, Councillor Edwards, because I think what people care about is how many dollars. You know, we in the municipal sector tend to focus a lot on that percentage. And I wasn't party to all of your budget discussions, but I'm glad that you know, you didn't shy away from the percentage and focused instead on what you're delivering and how much money is there. And you're exactly right. You know, in Toronto, there's a hue and cry, as there might have been expected to be over a proposed 10% property tax increase. But they're talking, that's $600 or $700 per year for the average house. The districts, we were 3.9% for district services this year. 0.4% is the hospital local share. That's $40 for a house assessed at $300,000. And for a $1 million place, it's about $130 a year. I mean, the difference is enormous because of the relative level of taxation. And so we need to be careful with the math. And most importantly, we need to speak the language of the people we serve, right? I mean, people care about how many of their dollars are being taken by 4 different levels of government in Canada. And we have the disadvantage in the municipal sector of that's very visible because it comes in the form of a property tax bill. People pay 20, 30, 40 times as much in income taxes and don't think about it because it comes off their paycheck. So.
And I wouldn't be me if I didn't suggest that we also have to focus on the value that people get for that price. That's the price of entry here, but in return, they're getting services, and we tend to forget A, what we're getting, and B, what the cost to deliver those services is up here relative to other places. But good points, Councillor Edwards. Thank you. Anybody else with a question? Anybody have a question for CAO Stevens while she's here? She said she'd come back and answer questions anytime, but no? All right, well, that's it then. Thank you very much for your time and your attention. We appreciate it. Thank you, Julie, as well. Come back anytime.
We'll be back every year because we want to keep the discussion open with our municipalities and certainly watch for more. Thank you very much.
Oh, Gord, you got your hand up now? Sorry. Oh,
So
Thank you.
yeah. Okay, next issue, we're right on here. Yep, the consent agenda, there's been a couple of matters pulled. We're going to do the ones that I can participate in, and then I'm going to recuse and disappear for a moment. First one is, bless you, moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that the mayor and council adopt and enact the following minutes and recommendations contained in the December 13, 2023 consent agenda and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. First, December 13, 2023 General and Finance Committee minutes and action items 1 through 4. Is there no 2? Oh, all right, sorry. And number 3, December the 14, 2023 Planning Committee minutes and action items 1 through 9. Anybody have any comments? Yes, you may ask a question.
Sorry, I'm just recalling in the past, when it's just a draft of the past minutes, that your pecuniary interest, you don't continue on into the past minutes.
Yeah, I'm
Except that I'm going to walk out then.
What's happening?
so you're going to recuse?
Just.
Okay, anyone else with a comment or question? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much.
What's that about?
I'm going to ask Deputy Mayor Mazan to take over for me, and I will recuse from the next 2. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that. What's that say? Oh, okay, sorry. That council adopt and enact the following minutes and recommendations contained in the December 13th, 2023 consent agenda and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. 2, December 13th, 2023 council minutes. 4, January 10th, 2024 special council minutes. All those in favor? Okay, all those opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you. Do I have to do the other one then? Later?
What's that? No. Okay. All right. Next up is a motion moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that the mayor be authorized to sign. Oh, I'm sorry. We don't have a Bosenworth. Yeah, we do.
This is a report according to you presented.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. All right. I misunderstood. Okay, this is a report we're gonna have a report come up, right, from Corey. This is on the EV charge thing, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon, Council. As Council's aware, over the past 6 to 8 months, we've been working to bring EV charging infrastructure to Muskoka Lakes. In that regard, we've been providing letters of intent to Lakeland Networks to work with them on some funding applications. Most recently, late this fall, the province announced their Charge Ontario program, which we provided a letter of intent for. As Lakelands has been working through that application process, they've been made aware that they need to have site access verification forms completed as part of their funding application. As it stands right now, staff have only been granted authority to enter into further negotiations with Lakelands regarding what those potential land agreements could look like, locations, etc. So with that in regard, Lakelands is asking Council to endorse their recommended site locations to proceed with the funding applications themselves. Council will recall at Lakeland's presentation this past July, they did identify their preferred locations for Bala and Port Carling. We've included those in the report with some pros and cons of each to assist with the decision moving forward. I will note Lakelands did propose one change in Bala. Upon further review of the Precambrian Shield, they determined that it wouldn't be a feasible option for them. And as such, they've in turn proposed the Portage Landing parking lot as a potential second option in Bala. So with that, I'm available for any questions. We also do have Mr. Peter Ewald from Lakelands on the call as well, and he's available to help with any questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Anyone with questions for either Mr. Moore or Mr. Ewald? Councilor Nishikawa.
Thank you. I'm not quite sure that, through you, I'm not sure if this kind of question is for Corey. I kind of feel like it might be for the CEO, but I'm not sure. One location in the Portage Landing parking lot. I'm a little, there's a few things. I don't know that we determined as a council that we were, is that what we're doing today, is we're sort of picking these locations? So in that, I guess I just need some more information as to, there was another applicant at one time that wanted to do this. And if we were going to invite someone else to basically provide the same thing that other applicant, but we didn't entertain theirs, where does that leave us in a financial situation?
CEO Hammond or, Mr. Moore, you can take that one, please.
Yes, certainly. I think as it stands right now, I think those decisions that have been approved in the past, staff have proceeded with the direction that council has directed to this point. I don't foresee there being any issues at this point with proceeding with supporting the funding applications as we have. Should council select that they don't maybe see that as a site they'd like to entertain, you have every right to determine that today. And that's why Lakelands wanted to include two options for Bala in particular. They're more than welcome to proceed with funding applications for each location and to see which one maybe becomes successful. If we want to have those, because the thought was we'd always have those discussions further on down the road, right? On the actual finalization of the location. So Lakelands just wants to keep those options available for right now. So we're at the helm of council.
Give a follow-up, Councilor Nishikawa.
Thank you. I'm not clear though, and I respectfully to Corey, I'm just not clear that, again, that other applicant would say, why didn't we look at them? And so that's why I didn't know if we could get sort of a legal issue on that, that would help me going forward, as well as, and so therefore, when is the discussion about the locations? Should we do it now?
I'm going to, if I understood your question, I guess the real question is, have we already disposed of the other alternative and we've decided to move with one, or is that what you're asking? No.
No, it was just that if I am choosing one particular location,
Yeah.
I want to know all of the pros and cons, and one of the cons is that there might be a legal challenge.
CEO Hammond, please.
So, your worship, my recollection of the process is that we had a couple of firms approach us with respect to receiving a letter of intent for their various proposals. Committee and council elected to go with one in particular. I think that's allowed, appropriate. Mr. Moore can correct me if I'm wrong. And as well, with respect to the particular sites, I think all you're doing is offering a letter of intent. You're not signing away any rights here. I think the previous direction that you gave that we have to negotiate an appropriate agreement with them. And they'll have to take into consideration council's various requirements. So you do want to have a level of satisfaction with the sites that are being put forward, comfort. But at the end of the day, you have to enter into an agreement eventually. Thank you.
Councillor Zavitz, I see your hands up.
Thank you, and through you, sir. So I guess to Councillor Nishikawa's point, but not quite on that same vein, I was not in favor at the beginning. I'm still not. I will not be voting in favor of this again because of the process. And I know that we're way beyond that. Horse is way out of the barn. But I think for the public record, the locations are what they are. And my problem with this whole scenario is that we did not go out into the public domain in a fulsome manner and seek other contestants, if you will, for this prize. So to that end, I won't be supporting this motion at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Yes, thank you very much. On the same vein and that. The applications for the Bell area, are they just putting in one location and giving two sites? Or are they putting in both sites? That's the first question.
Through you, Chair. I may refer to Mr. Ewald if he wants to speak to the exact kind of the installation of the sites, but it would be at eventually one or the other.
Okay, and then, it's one or the other in ballot. Okay, because my follow-up question for Portage Landing, if I'm not mistaken, someone else wanted to put stations in there and we didn't give them the street side. We said it had to be to the back of the parking lot, and I'd insist on the same here, and that not taking prime parking spots at this time. Thank you.
Director Becking, did you have your hand up?
No, Your Worship. Mr. Hammond said most of what you were approached by proposal with me.
We're having trouble hearing.
Sorry, that's my mistake. You were approached by an individual, council, and decided that the proposal was not satisfactory to it. This is a totally different proposal, and it's up to council to decide whether it chooses to support it or not. The exact details of how the proposal may be implemented is frankly a discussion for another day, if and when we are successful.
Thank you very much. Before Councillor Mazan, I'm going to ask, did you have your hand? I think you were trying to respond as well. Mr.
Yes, I will just carry on Councillor Edwards' second question. I did confirm with Mr. Ewald. I know Appendix 2 of the report at the proposed locations, there are some kind of rough draft circles on where those exact stations would be, but there is certainly flexibility when we get to that point as to where they would specifically be, et cetera, on each location.
Councillor Edwards, you have a follow-up?
Yeah. Also, if I'm going through my district, and that, I believe because it's a municipal, it's, Bracebridge generating now through Lakeland, that they can get 75% funding where, an individual private company can only get 50%, so they may be more successful at putting them in. Is this correct?
Mr. Moore?
If I may, Chair, I may deflect to Mr. Ewald, who may have some better knowledge on the funding aspect of it.
Mr. Ewald, welcome. You're on mute, but we'd love to hear your answer on that, please.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate the invite. Specifically to that question, we did reach out specific to the Ontario Ministry of Transportation, who's administering the EV charge on funding. And they did confirm, since Bracebridge Generation is 100% municipal owned, that we do qualify for the 75% funding as compared to 50% for a private business. So that is correct.
Thank you. Councillor Mazin.
Thank you, and through you. Quick question, clarification on your recommendation. It would seem that it says here for the following locations: 1 Bailey Street, and then 2 and 3, it's and or. So are we, just for clarification, are you looking for us to provide direction on one location in Bala? Or could we put all 3 forward at this point and make a future decision?
Through you, Chair, that's correct. At this point, we can proceed with all 3 and then have to make that more final decision at a later date once we see the results of the funding application.
Thank you.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, just want to clarify the ask. My understanding, the ask is that they're asking for us to give the nod to this proposed plan so that they can apply for some grants, and that we are not making any formal commitment on the locations or to Lakelands. Is that correct?
Mr. Moore?
Yes, through you, Chair. Yes, before you today is just authorization to complete the site access verification form, which is part of the funding application. The actual terms of the land agreements, etc., would come once we are notified on the success of the funding application.
Councillor Zavitz.
Councillor Zavitz, sorry, it was.
Thank you, and through you, I guess to Corey. Why is there not 2 locations in Port Carling and 2, as we have 2 suggested locations in Bala? I don't understand. In the middle of summer in Port Carling, it's the busiest place on the planet. So why would there not be the need or perceived need to have 2 locations in both of our towns, if you will? Thank you.
Mr. Moore?
Yes, through you, Chair, it might be a bit of a joint answer between myself and Mr. Ewald. I think when it came down to, when we had some early discussions just around the sites available in each town, Bala actually just has more available. There's a little more space that meet a lot of the requirements that Lakelands tends to look at when they're looking at sites. In terms of the power source nearby, parking, a lot of the pros identified in the report itself that they like to typically see with these locations, close to the downtown core, etc. So I think it literally was just that there's actually more options available in Bala. One of the additional pros to the township office in Port Carling was the ability to potentially eventually look at our fleet modernization as well, and the opportunity that comes with that. But I may refer to Mr. Ewald if he wants to carry on with that.
Mr. Ewald, can you add something to that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Through you. Developing these sites are very expensive, and Lakeland is committed to getting chargers in as many communities as possible within the region. So in theory, we're targeting 1 key site in communities the size of Port Carling and Bala. For the application, though, we see, based on Muskoka Lake staff diligent work, multiple options in Bala. So we want to apply to those, and then with staff council direction, make a final decision after we hear back on the funding announcement. But we think, yes, in particular, the Port Carling site is well suited and meets staff recommendations as well.
Thank you, sir. More questions? Or Councillor Edwards and then Councillor Nishikawa.
Yes, you're talking about Port Carling not having anything. We have the library parking lot, which would be good. We have the arena parking lot that could be used. And if they're getting 75% compared to somebody else at 50, maybe they could expand it and put more in, because we need charging stations. Thank you.
Question, Councillor Nishikawa?
Yes, I think it's more, the question would be to the applicant through you. So my concerns are just, and I understand that these were just sort of locations chosen, and we're not zeroing in on the specifics, but I have to pay attention to the specifics. And in fact, I'm very concerned of even committing to any, like the Portage parking lot is an incredibly busy location. And we talked about this before, and it's incredibly busy. And I don't see this as being the optimal location to take away parking. Like, you have to remember, we're taking away parking stalls too. Even if it's only two, it's two, right? But it is that conversation. So I don't want to give an impression that, I'm all in favor of this type. But I do wonder, and I wonder if the question was looked at the sports park in Bala. That to me is a really ideal location for lots of different reasons. And we've already heard, others saying that there's, business out at that way as well. But I do want to, I want to add, if we were to add other locations to make your application more suitable, I would rather remove the Portage, but I just want to add, like, I would be in favor of the sports park, for instance. And in fact, I could say other locations as well, but just not Portage. That's my concern.
Okay, well, I'm going to read the resolution, and I think we need to deal with the application as it came before us rather than the one we might have wished for. Councillor Edwards, is it a question?
Yeah, I didn't get an answer. Did they look at the other sites? That's what I had asked for. The same as Hannah's Park and everything else. That's what I'm asking. I didn't get an answer. Thank you.
Mr. Moore or Mr. Ewald, who has the answer to that one? Did we look at other sites in you're talking about Port Carling? In Port Carling?
Yeah,
Mr. Moore.
if Mr. Ewald wants to speak to the sites, he's certainly evaluated them more with the scope of the infrastructure they're going to be installing. So.
Okay, thank you, Corey. Thank you, Chair. So the Muskoka Lake staff had already prepared kind of a high-level site assessment document and identified many sites. So that's where Lakeland started with our assessment. There are many factors. The big one for us is access to three-phase power. So some of these sites do not have easy access to three-phase, and that is basically a non-starter because of grid development costs will essentially kill the feasibility. That said, we're open to discussions. Our timeline is that we need to get these applications in. Once approved, then we can evaluate sites. Now, these applications are site specific, so we identified these three for now. The good news is there's additional funding through the federal government called ZEVIP coming this spring. So there is an opportunity beyond the EV Charge On program to do additional sites if Muskoka Lakes Council wishes so. And we would be happy to be involved. But we do have a very tight timeline for the charge on applications. So that's why we've identified these three key sites. Once the funding is approved, if council doesn't want to proceed with a particular site, such as Portage Landing, that can be negotiated, and there's no commitment to actually build the site. It's just we can always deny the funding after it's been approved.
All right, I'm going to read a resolution. Moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that the mayor be authorized to sign the site access verification form as part of the funding application to the EV Charge On program by Lakeland Solutions for the following locations. Number 1, 1 Bailey Street. Number 2, 1007 Bala Falls Road. And or number 3, 3111 District Road 169. Any further questions? Councillor Nishikawa.
Is it appropriate to add a location at this time? And I guess that question would be to Corey or the applicant.
Mr. Moore?
Yes, happy to answer through you, Chair. For this particular program, if we were going to add a site, now would be the time. The deadline is the end of this month to have the funding applications in. That's why this report came right to council, just due to that timing associated. Just to carry on from how Mr. Ewald explained some of the site selections, council's well aware, at the very beginning of this process, we drafted some policies that we included in the OP. With that, staff compared those to the public properties we had in each urban center, which we were able to provide to the applicants. And from there, they were able to evaluate the sites themselves. So the sports park, the community center in Bala, Windsor Park, those were all evaluated as well. The library and Hannah Park in Port Carling. But as Mr. Ewald touched on, those sites specifically required a lot more from a power source supply than the sites that have been proposed in the report here, as well as along a few of the other items such as access to the business community, public washrooms, etc., like that. So that's how these sites were determined, just in working with the applicant as kind of the best solution moving forward.
Thank you. At the risk of a yes answer, Mr. Councillor Bosenworth, your hand is up.
Thank you. If this is the deadline, I guess my question is, we are eventually going to have to, or should be thinking about putting power stations in places like the library, which has quite a large parking lot in behind it, and the park in Bala, as Councillor Nishikawa mentioned. So if not now, then when?
Mr. Moore?
Yes, through you, Chair. I think Mr. Ewald touched on it. I don't think this funding application has to be the be all end all. There are additional funding programs available. The ZVIP, I think Mr. Ewald termed it. I know we provided a letter of intent for that. It was originally supposed to close this past fall. They've since extended it to the spring of 2024. So I think there's going to be opportunities that continue to come to us, and we can evaluate those on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you. I'm seeing no other hands up, then I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That carries. All opposed? All right, that carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think we're going to take a 5-minute break if we can. We're going to end here an hour and a half. Thank you. Councilor Nishikawa, we're underway.
When are your next fire?
It'll be quick. Okay, welcome back. Thank you for sticking to the timeline. We're going to go to Director Becking to talk about the snowmobile trail. Please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Further to the deputation that you received last month regarding cooperation with the local snowmobile club, they have requested a reinstatement of the previously existing trail that passed over the Bala Falls Bridge and down Bala Falls Road. You'll also recall that the road and bridge was reconstructed and converted from a two-way structure in one lane in both directions to a single lane structure in a northwesterly direction. I've given you the rationale and the legal background with respect to the operation of a single lane roadway and how that can be how we can adjust the traffic regulations and make certain signage improvements so as to make the road is adequate for two-way traffic for the snowmobile club. And the staff recommendation is that you pass a bylaw to affect those changes. We will get them in place and hopefully in time for the current snowmobiling season.
Thank you, sir. Anyone with any questions for Director Becking? Councilor Nishikawa.
Look at a map of some form, but essentially my question would ultimately be, we've always ensured that one side would be for snowmobiles and we'd have pedestrian on the other side. So I just want to confirm that that puts, and I'm talking about 169 here. So on the sidewalk if we were traveling towards Port Carling, the right-hand side would be where the snowmobiles would be, and we would wing it back then. I'm not sure if that's even happening anymore or that conversation is going on with district.
Director Becking.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report before you, frankly, is not related to that. The 169, as you're aware, is a district roadway. We will be maintaining one side for pedestrian use only, and that will force the club to utilize the opposite side of the street.
Any other questions? I'm going to read a resolution. Moved by Councillor Zabit, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that a bylaw to authorize a snowmobile trail on the west downstream side of the Bala Falls Bridge and Road from the north intersection with District Municipality of Muskoka DMM Road 169 to the south intersection with DMM Road 169 be presented for approval. Any questions? Any comments? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Director Becking, you're on now about the asset management plan.
Thank you, Your Worship. You'll recall that the draft version was presented to you at your December meeting. Staff asked that if any members of council had any comments, questions, or concerns with respect to the draft document, that they would be forwarded to me, incorporated, so that I could bring forward a final document to you. We had a few comments from staff, none from members of council. We also did a bit of a scan through and corrected a few grammatical and spelling mistakes. But otherwise, there has been no feedback to the contrary. That being the case, the document is now before you for adoption.
Thank you. Any questions for Director Becking before I read the resolution? Nope, I'll read it. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that council adopt the corporate asset management plan as presented by staff at the December 13, 2023 General Finance Committee meeting and attached to report PW-2024-003. Any comments? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. All right, next up is, I believe, Manager of Human Resources. Is she here?
Mr. Sopko.
Oh, she's not, please join us. This one is.
Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you. Thank you.
We're here to deliver the information regarding the report regarding an award for a new sidewalk tractor. We issued a request for tender, and we received a total of 3 bids. The one bid we received was around $8,000 less than the bid for Joe Johnson Equipment that we're recommending for award. But we are requesting award to Joe Johnson for several reasons. The unit by Joe Johnson has a larger engine, and it delivers much more power at lower RPM. So this equates to a lower operating cost. We currently have a trackless unit, which is the unit that is being bid by Joe Johnson in our inventory, and it's been reliable throughout its life that we've had it. We do not have any experience with the other equipment by Karcher. Joe Johnson is located in Innisfil, and they offer same-day delivery of parts and next-day delivery of service, and it's been very reliable in that regard. The low bidder is located west of Ottawa, so we see some challenges in that regard. And finally, we also noted that after reviewing the tenders and comparing the 2 units, the attachments on the Joe Johnson equipment were much more appropriate for our operation. So based on those considerations, we're recommending that the tender be awarded to Joe Johnson Equipment and the purchase can be completed using the allocated budget. So stand before for any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Good report. Anyone with any questions? Mr. Councillor Bosenworth, please.
Yes, thank you. Through you, I was just wondering what is the make of the tractor?
The make of the Joe Johnson Equipment is a trackless, whereas through you, I'm not sure if you're looking for the make of the other bids or just the award.
Well, the other ones I'd be interested. I mean, nothing runs like a deer or something I remember, but
So through you, the bid for the trackless, it is using a John Deere engine, and the bid for the low bid from Karcher was for a Holder municipal tractor. I believe it was a Kubota engine.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'll read a resolution then. Moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that council award contract T-2024-01 to FST Canada Inc., operating as Joe Johnson Equipment for the bid price of $191,591.20 plus HST. And that the Director of Public Works be authorized to execute the necessary documents to proceed with this contract. Any questions on the resolution? And I'll call it all in favor. Thank you. That carries. All right. Next one again, Mr. Sopko, you're still there talking about new tandem axle truck, please.
Yeah, so we issued a tender for a new tandem axle plow truck and we received 1 bid. The bid price is within the allocated budget, and we're recommending award to this bidder, which is Curry Truck Center, located in Bracebridge. I stand for any questions.
Thank you. Anybody with a question on this truck? All right, I'll read a resolution. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that council award contract T-2024-02 to Curry Truck Center, Bracebridge for the bid price of $385,636 plus HST. And that the Public Works that's three, and that the Director of Public Works be authorized to execute the necessary documents to proceed with this contract. Any questions on that, Councillor Bosenworth?
It's another one. Just curious why in Mr. Sopko's opinion is why we didn't get more than one bid.
So through you, the market for the heavier duty trucks, it's been very tight. It's still recovering from impacts of COVID. There were comparable brands. This bid is for a Western Star truck. Freightliner was another bid that we sometimes received. Availability of engines, they basically, what we're hearing is they've been bought up for the next few years. And we also typically used to receive bids in the past from Currie Truck Center in Barrie and Northland Truck Center in Bracebridge. They've since been bought up and consolidated. So we've lost one of our competitors there as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? I read this. I don't think I've read this yet. I did? Oh, I did. Okay, so no more questions, no comments. I'll call the question. All in favor, please. Thank you. That one carries. Thank you. Mr. Sopko, you're going to talk to us about a pickup truck next, I think.
Yeah, so the last report I have for you here today was for a request for tender for a new half-ton pickup. We received 2 bids on this truck, and our recommendation is to award to Corvettes out of Bracebridge, and the purchase can be made using the allocated budget. But stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Councillor Nishikawa, you have a question?
Thank you. Well, my question would be through you to Tim, but I'm on the bigger picture, we're going to be purchasing more pickup trucks, like other departments, I guess. Are you the guy? Like, I'm just concerned that we never got to the point. I think Director Becking and I had this conversation probably 5 years ago, where we actually had a purchasing of all of our equipment was under one heading, like somebody to manage it all. And mostly it's kind of like, if you have to buy 4 or even 2, you might be better to negotiate for both of them at the same time. But I don't understand if another department's going to go forward and that, what their relationship is, all that stuff.
Thank you. Director Becking.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, we tender, each tender is specific to the type or class of equipment that we are looking for. So for instance, if we were looking for 3 pickup trucks, half-ton pickup trucks, we would bid all 3 at once. If we're looking for 3 economy or compact pickup trucks, we would issue a separate tender. The tendering is being done through Mr. Sopko for all equipment, all rolling stock, I'll say, across the organization, so that we're picking up those economies of scale when it's applicable.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'm pretty sure I haven't read. Have I read? No. I should remember. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that Council award contract T-2024-03 to Gravette Chevrolet Buick Cadillac and GMC Truck Ltd for the bid price of $56,550 plus HST, and that the Director of Operational Services be authorized to execute the necessary documents to proceed with this contract. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Sopko. Good job. Now we're going to go back to the HR issue. Is that correct? Ms. Lehman, is that next? There we go. Is it here? Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Kelly, members of council. The report in front of you provides an overview of the recruitment for the Director of Operations position. The recruitment is currently underway, and we're seeking a professional engineer with 10 years of experience in municipal infrastructure design, construction, and operations, and a minimum of 5 years experience in municipal operations at a senior management level. This request is not meant to comment on the existing pool. To find candidates with the best match to our requirements, it may be worthwhile to engage a professional recruiter so that a more involved search can be initiated. We're asking for approval to sole source a recruiter if required, to make a hiring decision within our timeline. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. A couple through you. We used to employ the district, like we would, hire the district to help out, and I'm not sure if that's a possibility anymore. I know everybody's very busy as they are, but I don't know if we reached out in that way. As I said, we did that in the past. And then also I recall for another time for the same position, I will just say that we actually hired a municipal employee, and I can't remember his name. But he was very good at what he does. And that was probably back in around 2012 or something. But anyhow, I just don't remember that gentleman. But he was interesting. It was interesting to have him because he had a lot more experience to share with us. Counselors at that time, counselors were involved with the hiring process. So I was just kind of curious about if we did reach out to get some additional help from the district. And then also I'm kind of wondering, like I read my municipal worlds all the time and I didn't see you. If I missed that edition, I'm sorry, but did we actually use that way to advertise?
Yeah.
Ms. Lehman?
Great. Thank you for the questions. So yes, we did post in Municipal World. So the recruitment's been underway for about 6 weeks. So we did our usual process, and Municipal World was one of them. District HR, so I think we used them before we had an HR department, and then as I was coming into the role for the CAO position, I have not reached out to them, but I can't see that being an option anymore with their long-term care recruitment. They're really busy, and I think further we're looking for an outside assistance because it's at the professional level, not just because it's busy with recruitment. It's because we want the network that a recruiter would bring to us potentially. So it's a little different than just regular HR resources. And the municipal employee, it could have been a recruiter, Councillor Nishikawa. I'm not sure that experience you are referring to being that you hired somebody who had municipal experience.
Sorry, it's interesting because he also attends most AMO meetings and he speaks. And so I will remember him afterwards, but he actually, there was a time when he spent a fair chunk of time in the township of Muskoka Lakes and as of an advisor. And I'm just.
CEO Hammond, you had something you wanted to say?
Thanks, Your Worship. The reason that we're looking for the particular qualifications is I think the incumbent has demonstrated to me in particular that the value of those qualifications in terms of getting us to where we are over the past 5 years with respect to asset management and smooth construction, reconstruction, rehabilitation project completion and results. And so I think those qualifications will be key going forward to help us move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Burry.
It's probably not, it's not a question. So having been involved with a business that had a recruiting division, the right recruiter will find things that are not in the same shallow pond. We have fished in the same shallow pond for a very long time. And to just, to go along with CAO's Hammond's comments, I think we're looking for a very specialized skill set that having the right person in that job, as our incumbent has proven, will help us as a township. And I don't think we're going to find that through the regular channels. And recruiters that are good are worth their weight in gold. And absolutely, as long as it's, you know, the right recruiting firm that I'm no longer involved with. So don't have a pecuniary interest. I would strongly support going outside to look and see what we can do to find some help.
Thank you. Councillor Zabitz, you had your hand up. Did you take it down or did it just fall down?
Well, thank you, and through you, I did it fall down. I guess I wonder if we reviewed the credentials that we're looking for, we removed the need to play the bagpipes, if we could have an easier time filling Mr. Becking's role. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I'm gonna read a resolution. Did I read the resolution? No. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that relief from procurement bylaw 2004-161 be granted to the CAO to sole source an external recruiter should services be required to fill the Director of Operations vacancy. Any questions? All in favor? Was that a question? All right, that carries. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. All right, next up, we're moving on to the general and other bylaws. I think the first couple. I beg your pardon?
I mean, we all already passed those, but I'm just saying, we could read them all together.
Okay, I'm going to just, there's no presentation with these. We'll just read them and run with them. Okay, first. Yeah, maybe we could talk about that other times, but that's good. Moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-007, being a bylaw to appoint a building inspector for the enforcement of the Building Code Act and the building bylaw of the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Just sign. All right, next up, moved by Councillor Zabitz, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Zabitz there? I don't see a Councillor Zabitz. Oh, there he is. Moved by Councillor Zabitz, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-008, being a bylaw to assign a property standards officer for the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, be ready first, second, and third time and finally passed. Questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Next up, moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-009, being a bylaw to appoint a building inspector for the enforcement of the Building Code Act and the building bylaw of the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any questions? I'll call the question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. All right, I think this is the last of these series. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-010, being a bylaw to assign a property standards officer for the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Okay. What are we on to now? Shore Road Allowance. Is somebody speaking to this one? Rochelle, welcome. This is 9 Mile Lake, right? Yeah. You're on. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first bylaw 2024-006, is for the purposes of stopping up, closing, and conveying an original shore road allowance on 9 Mile Lake. Thank you.
Okay, that's good. Anyone with any questions? Hearing none, I'll read. Moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that the original shore road allowance on 9 Mile Lake, lying in front of Concession 13, Part Lot 16, Wood, designated as Part 1 on Plan 35R-26910-Highland-Roll 8-9-101, be declared as surplus land. And that the clerk is hereby instructed to dispose of the said property pursuant to sections 8, 9, and 11 of the Municipal Act 2001, and that bylaw 2024-012 to stop up, close, and convey that portion of shore road allowance, original shore road allowance designated as Part 1 on 35R-26910 be given 3 readings and passed. Any questions on this? I'll call the question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Next up is Zia. Is that correct? All right, perfect.
That's correct. Through your worship, bylaw 2024-012 is for the purposes of stopping up, closing, and conveying an original shore road allowance on 3 Mile Lake.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions on the report, on the discussion? I'll read it. Moved by Councillor Zabit, seconded by Councillor Bosenworth. Be it resolved that the original shore road allowance on 3 Mile Lake, lying in front of Concession 7, Part Lot 20 Watt, designated as Part 2 on Plan 35R-10550-ZIA-Roll 2-N-024, be declared as surplus land, and that the clerk is hereby instructed to dispose of the said property pursuant to sections 8, 9, and 11 of the Municipal Act 2001, and that bylaw 2024-006 to stop up, close, and convey that portion of shore road, original shore road allowance designated as Part 2 on 35R-10550 be given 3 readings and passed. Questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Okay. Next up, Lockington, correct?
That's correct, your worship. Bylaw 2024-013 is for the purposes of conveying flooded original shore road allowance on Lake Rosso.
Thank you. Any questions so far? None? I'll read a resolution. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that a portion of closed flooded original shore road allowance on Lake Rosso lying in front of Concession 14, Part Lots 32 and 33 Watt, designated as Parts 3, 4, 5, and 6 on Plan 35R-27240-Lockington-Roll 2-27-046-02 be declared as surplus land, and that the clerk is hereby instructed to dispose of the said property pursuant to sections 8, 9, and 11 of the Municipal Act 2001, and that bylaw 2024-013 to convey that portion of closed flooded original shore road allowance designated as Parts 3, 4, 5, and 6 on 35R-27240 be given 3 readings and passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Next one is, this is probably out of order. No, that's it. Emergency Management Program. Who's speaking? Anybody speaking? No? You have something new. Move it forward with? No, I just read the resolution if you, unless you have questions. Okay.
It's easy.
All right. Moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Bosenworth. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-123, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2017-130, which is a bylaw to establish an emergency management program for the Township of Muskoka Lakes, be ready first, second, and third time, and finally passed. Anyone have any questions? Any comments? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, who's up for Coombs? Anybody? Just reading this one? Okay. Moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-014 to designate site plan control, Coombs, part of Lot 6, Concession 8, Monk, roll number 9-7-071, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Okay, next one up. I'm just reading this one too. All right, I'm going to just read this one. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-015 to designate site plan control Overbeek, part of lot 33, concession 7, parts 2 and 3, plan 35R-27009 Wood, roll number 7-3-075-02, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Another one? Thank you. Okay. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-001, being a bylaw to borrow, if necessary, to meet current expenditures for 2024 for the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Just gotta get caught up where I am here. Still a few. Okay. Okay, moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Zavitz, being it resolved that bylaw 2024-002, being a bylaw to authorize the levy and collection of interim taxes on all properties and property classes, to establish the dates for payment of taxes, and to provide for the charge of penalties and interest for the non-payment of the same, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. Any questions? I'll call it. All in favor? Thank you. That carries. Are we on 13? I'm going to take a recusal right here, right about now. I will step out. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-020, being a bylaw to acquire part of lot 74, Plan 1, Port Carling, now in the Township of Muskoka Lakes in the District Municipality of Muskoka, designated as Part 6 on Plan 35R-14366 as in PIN 48150-0703 LT, located at 7 Bailey Street in Port Carling, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, thank you. That does carry. That's it.
Ah, yes, coming from the supplementary, we heard this discussion already. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-019, being a bylaw to regulate the flow of traffic on Bala Falls Bridge Road and to regulate the use of Bala Falls Road by motorized snowmobiles, be ready first, second, and third time, and finally passed. Anybody with any comments on this one? I'll call it. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Ms. Walker, you're speaking to this next one, I understand, Swerhone and Finley. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Kelly, and good afternoon, everyone. So in December, Planning Committee heard zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 3223, bylaw 2023-121 in the name of Swerhone and Finley. The subject property is known municipally as 152 Island R60. If the application is approved, it will permit a land-based sleeping cabin with a floor area of 850 square feet. In December, Planning Committee recommended approval of the application subject to the following minor amendments. First, to only permit the proposed oversized sleeping cabin until such time as an application is filed for a building permit for a land-based dwelling, and thereafter only permit a sleeping cabin with a maximum floor area of 650 square feet. And the second was to relocate the proposed sleeping cabin to the satisfaction of the chief building official and to amend Schedule 2 and 3 accordingly. Since the December meeting, the applicants have worked with the township's chief building official and have opted to keep the proposed sleeping cabin in the same location and relocate the existing septic system to achieve a compliant setback. The servicing and location of the septic system will be reviewed at the time a building permit is applied for. No new submissions were received after the planning committee meeting in December, and I have no other comments, but I'm happy to assist with any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions before I start reading resolutions? There are 3 to this one. Nope, seeing none, I'll just start in. Thank you very much. Okay, moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-121 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, Swearhone and Findlay, roll number 4-28-082, be read a first and second time. Any questions? All in favor? That one passed, carries. Thank you very much. Next up is the minor amendment. Let's see what it says. Moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that Township Council amend bylaw 2023-121, Swearhone and Findlay, roll number 4-28-082. And these amendments are minor in nature and do not require further public circulation and are hereby approved prior to third reading. The amendments shall consist of to only permit the proposed oversized sleeping cabin until such time as an application is filed for a building permit for a land-based dwelling, and thereafter only permit a sleeping cabin with a maximum floor area of 650 square feet, and to relocate the proposed sleeping cabin to the satisfaction of the chief building official and amend Schedules 2 and 3 accordingly. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. And then finally, third reading is moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-121, Swearhone and Findlay, roll number 4-28-082, be read a third time and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? That one carries as well. Thank you. Okay. No minor amendment, no presentation. Okay, just going to read this one first. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-127 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, BHR Properties, Inc., roll number 7-11-037, be read a first and second time. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. And then to close that one, moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-127, BHR Properties, Inc., roll number 7-11-037, be read a third time and finally passed. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. What do we got now? Ms. Walker, you're back up on this one, are you? Thank you. And there's a minor amendment. Okay. This is 1377135 Ontario, Inc.
Thank you, Mayor Kelly.
Thank
In
you.
December, Planning Committee heard zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 35/23, bylaw 2023-128 in the name of 1377135 Ontario, Inc. The subject property is known municipally as 1021 Gordon Street. The application, if approved, will permit the rezoning of part of the subject lot from community industrial light industry M1 to community commercial marina C2, to construct a rooftop sun deck on an existing store that exceeds the maximum permitted length and is within the required side yard setbacks, and would permit the construction of a new accessory showroom / staff quarters building that will exceed the maximum permitted height. In December, Planning Committee recommended approval of the application subject to the following minor amendment. That exemption C regarding the maximum permitted height for the showroom and staff quarters building be removed. No new submissions have been received since the Planning Committee meeting in December, and I have no further comments, but I'm happy to assist with questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Walker. Anybody with any questions? Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. And sort of specifically through you to Ms. Walker, I was concerned about a staff report from the building department on this particular one, and I'm just learning, like, moving forward. I'm sort of assuming that staff, put this stuff out there saying this could be a concern. And should I just be, okay, we approve it and just think that staff's going to take care of it, or do we actually want to comment on when staff has concerns, I guess is my concern, I suppose.
Ms. Walker, are you able to answer that, please?
Yep, so we did receive comments from the Development Services Department and our chief building official in this regard. They did indicate that and we did discuss this with the department, we do normally have those conversations before they come. The building department has indicated that this would be addressed at the building permit phase of the application, and if their requirements cannot be met at that time, then a building permit would not be issued for the structure.
Thank you. And I just mostly wanted everyone else to hear that same thing, that just because we're approving it, it may not get approved at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with a question? I'll start reading. Moved by Councillor Roberts. Thank you very much, Ms. Walker. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-128 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14 1377135 Ontario Inc., roll number 7-12-049, be read a first and second time. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Next up, moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved the Township Council amend bylaw 2023-128 1377135 Ontario Inc., roll number 7-12-049. And the amendment is minor in nature and does not require further public circulation and is hereby approved prior to third reading. The amendment shall consist of removing exemption C regarding maximum permitted height. Any questions? Call a question. All in favor? That one carries. Thank you very much. And finalize that, moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-128 1377135 Ontario Inc., roll number 7-12-049 be read a third time and finally passed. All in favor? Thank you. That carries. Okay, Ms. Crowder, you're on for this next one, which is Arju.
Thank you, Mayor Kelly, and good afternoon, members of council. Concurrent consent and zoning bylaw amendment applications B0522ML and ZBA 4022 in the name of Harju were heard by Planning Committee on December 14th, 2023. The purpose of these applications is to create one new lot and to rezone a portion of the severed lot from rural RU1 to open space private OS2, and to provide an exemption from the minimum frontage requirement of 600 feet in a rural RU1 zone for the retained lot. In December, committee made a recommendation to council that the applications be approved subject to a number of conditions and provided the resolution be amended to replace all references to the word hunting with the word trapping and the words hunt camp to trappers camp. Committee also recommended a number of minor amendments as follows. To prohibit a forestry operation and a wayside pit or quarry on the severed lot. To prohibit the use of a trapping camp as a commercial enterprise for profit on the severed lot. To limit the number of trapping camps permitted on the severed lot to 1. to require a minimum setback for a trapping camp to be 1,000 feet from the northwesterly lot line of the severed lot, and to prohibit the use of a trapping camp on the property and to prohibit the use of a hunt camp on the property and to permit the use of a trapping camp together with a definition which solely accommodates trappers. Staff have no further comments, but are happy to assist council with any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crowder. Ms. Crowder, does anyone have questions before I read? Seeing none, thank you. First one, moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-147, Harju, roll numbers 2-18-009, 2-18-100, 2-19-001 be read a first and second time. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Next, the minor amendment moved by Councillor Zabit, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved, the Township Council amend bylaw 2022-147, Harju, roll numbers 2-18-009, 2-18-100, 2-19-001. And these amendments are minor in nature and do not require further public circulation and are hereby approved prior to third reading. The amendments shall consist of first, prohibiting a forestry operation and a wayside pit or quarry on the severed lot, prohibiting the use of a trapping camp as a commercial enterprise for profit on the severed lot, limiting the number of trapping camps permitted on the severed lot to 1, requiring a minimum setback for a trapping camp to be 1,000 feet from the northeasterly lot line of the severed lot, and prohibiting the use of a hunt camp on the property and permitting the use of a trapping camp together with a definition which solely accommodates trappers. Anybody have a question on that? Then I will call it. All in favor? That one carries too. Thank you. All right, finally, moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-147, Harju, roll numbers 2-18-009, 2-18-100, 2-19-001 be read a third time and finally passed. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Okay, next up, we're going to move into closed, moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved, the council in closed session convene at 3:29 p.m. for a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, Section 239, Sub 2, Sub C of the Municipal Act 2001, Report CCS-2024-002. All in favor? That carries. So we'll go into closed. We need a break.
Yeah, we probably should.
All right, we'll take 10-minute break. Be back here at 20 minutes to 4.